What's going on, family? Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to take a look at a fighter by the name of Johnny Bump City Bumpus. Now, Johnny Bump City Bumpus was born August 17th, 1960 in Tacoma, Washington. He was a southpaw that stood 6 foot 1 inch and had total bouts of 31, 29 wins, 20 KOs, 2 losses. In 1968, Johnny Bumpus began boxing at the age of 8 in the Boys Club, located in Tacoma, Washington, on 25th and Yakima Avenue. You would find him with his good friend, Rocky Lockridge. And if he came at the right day, you may even see Leo Rudolph. Leo Rudolph would make the 1976 Olympic Games and come home with a gold medal. Johnny Bump City Bumpus would win a 1977 National AAU Featherweight Championship by defeating Lee Simmons. Lee Simmons was from Arkin, Ohio. In 1979, Johnny Bumpus would win the National Golden Gloves, becoming the 132-pound champion. He was a very proud young man. And he would have the audacity to defeat Ronnie Shields for the 1980 Olympic Games. He would actually be placed on a spot of that team. You see, the Olympics was boycotted in 1980. So Johnny Bumpus would never get an opportunity to fight in Moscow and represent the United States. He and Sugar Ray Seals and Big John Tate and others would lose that opportunity, but they would all turn professional. Johnny Bumpus will lead the amateurs with a fighting record of 341 wins, 6 losses, along with the middleweight champion Freddie Steele and 1976 gold medalist and Olympian Leo Rudolph, as well as featherweight champion Rocky Lockridge. Johnny would represent Tacoma, Washington proud. After signing to the main events and winning 22 fights, Johnny would defeat Lorenzo Luis Garcia to become the WBA Junior Welterweight Champion. He would eventually lose that title to Gene Hatcher in Buffalo, June 1984, the year the Olympics would be held in Los Angeles. And eventually you would have some fascinating fighters come to main events, such as Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker, Meldrick T.N.T. Taylor, Tyrone Biggs, Mark Breland, and at that time, Rocky Lockridge and Johnny Bumpus and Vinny Pazienza were the main fighters on that gym and main event team. But they would eventually be pushed out with the new Olympians. And after losing to Gene Hatcher, Johnny Bumpus would have one more opportunity. And he would face the Ragamuffin Man, Lloyd Hunnigan. Lloyd Hunnigan was dominating the division. He had just defeated Donald Curry. Donald Curry was the WBA welterweight champion. He was from Fort Worth, Texas. And Donnie Curry would eventually quit in that fight with Lloyd Hunnigan. There would be a collide of heads. And for some reason, Donald Curry, who was thought of as a future in the welterweight as well as the middleweight division, was decide to quit in his stool. And he would fall from the wayside, facing Mike McCallum and Terry Norris later in his career. But Lloyd Hunnigan would face Johnny Bump City Bumpus for the WBC and the IBF welterweight championship. And Johnny Bumpus would be stopped in the second round. It would begin in the first round with a straight right hand. He would make it back to his corner. And in the second round, he would be knocked out. That was his only second loss. Of 31 total bouts. But the Duvers had seen enough because Johnny Bumpus was on drugs. He was on cocaine and eventually on crack. He would go to rehab, clean himself up, and get a job as an assistant trainer for main events. Johnny Bumpus was a fascinating fighter with a bright future. But due to drugs and alcohol that would derail his progress, he was a phenomenal fighter. Had a very good personality with Johnny Bumpus. I met him in Atlantic City. And he was just a very, very good person. But he got caught up with the wrong crowd. And unfortunately for him, he couldn't make the welterweight division. Because that's where he fought Lloyd Hunnigan for the WBC and IBF welterweight championship. So Johnny Bump City Bumpus, I salute you. Great humanitarian, fascinating fighter, dynamite amateur career. This is Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Salute to Johnny Bumpus. Salute to a fascinating junior welterweight champion. Thanks for hanging in there with me. This is Scrapbook Boxing. Salute to Johnny Bumpus.